And so Jim does all the lead up to the stuff of the antagonistic things, and then finally I get him. He gets me in the headlock, and he's standing with me in the headlock, and the director goes, "Cut!" And so then the stunt double comes in, and he gets me. Jim gets out of the ring. The stunt double comes in, puts me in the headlock. I pick this guy up, and he says, "Action!" I pick him up, boom, drop him on his head, and the director yells, "Cut!" He rolls out of the ring. Jim rolls back in, and he lays down where that guy was. His action, and so then I reach over. They get a tight shot of Jim's face. I reach over. I pick him up. I stick his head between my legs for the pile driver, and the director yells, "Cut!" He gets out of the ring. The stunt double gets in, puts his head between my legs. Action! I pick him up. Boom! Give him the pile driver. Same thing. Cut! In rolls Jim, and we go through this for about 10 takes, right? And finally, the people in the audience are actually yelling at Carrey, "What's the matter? You afraid to get a pound?" some of these extras are actually heckling him, right? And so we're getting ready, and this was amazing. It was like Director Milos Forman gets on the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're getting antsy. I promise you, this is the last take. We're going to do this one more time. We're just readjusting some lights. This is going to be the last take, and then we'll call it a wrap. Everybody will be able to go home." So everybody applauds, right? So I'm standing there in my corner, and all of a sudden, here comes Bob Zamuda, who was Andy's best friend and writer and everything, in real life, Andy. And he comes walking over to me in the ring, and he's just talked to Jim, who's in the other corner. And Bob Zamuda, kind of under his breath, says, "Hey, Jerry, on this take, when you pick him up for the pile driver, and the director yells 'cut,' he said, just go ahead and give him the pile driver, and we'll have it on film, and there'll be nothing they can do about it." And he said, "Jim wants you to give him the pile driver." And so then he turns around and walks back across the ring, right? So now I'm thinking, holy crap. Now this is all on me. I'm going to give this guy a pile driver, and I know what he's going to do. He's going to lay there like he's hurt. He's going to have him call in an ambulance and all this crap, just like Andy did.
Yep.
And I said, and I'm going to look like the big a-hole, right?
Yeah.
So the director, Milos Forman, is walking by. He said, "Everybody in the places, get ready." And I leaned down and I said, "Milos." And he said, "Yes, Jerry." And I said, "Andy just sent Bob Zamuda over here." Or not Andy. I said, "Jim just sent Bob Zamuda over." And he said, when you yell 'cut,' he wants me to go ahead and give him the pile driver. And he just wants to take the pile driver. And he said, "Oh, Jetty, I'm so glad you told me. Thank you very much." He gets the megaphone. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. We're through for the day. Thank you very much." Oh, my gosh. I looked over, and Jim Carrey was freaking furious. His eyes got as big as saucers, and he's looking at me, and he storms out to the middle of the ring, and he grabs the ring, and he grabs the microphone that the ring announcer was using, and he starts feeding the house, and he said, "Let me tell you people something. I wanted to take a pile driver, but the insurance people, and they were afraid, and they wouldn't let me do it. I'm not afraid." And all of a sudden, they cut the microphone off. Suddenly, he couldn't be heard, and he was really even more furious now, right? So he starts screaming, "I have worked on Broadway, and I do not need a microphone to be heard. I am not afraid to take the pile driver. Lawler's just afraid to give it to me." And he comes right over. I mean, this was like a total shoot. He comes right over and gets right in my face, and veins are bulging out in the side of his neck. I'm looking at him like he's nuts, and he just looks at me, and he spits right in my face.
Wow.
It's a big hogger right in my face. And I went, "What the?" And I just lost it. And suddenly, I think he came to his senses, realized what he had done, and he runs. He turns around, he starts running across the ring. I've just lost it then, and I run across, and I catch him right before he can slide out of the ring by his neck. I had him in like a reverse face lock, right? A reverse chin lock. And he's tried to slide out underneath the bottom rope. Now, he had about a 300-pound, this big black guy that was his security guard. He sees what's going on, so he grabs Carrey by the ankles. And he's trying to pull him out of the ring, and I got him by his neck, and I'm pulling him back into the ring. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, what am I going to do? I got to beat up Jim Carrey here in front of the world, right? So I let him go, and the guy pulls him down onto the floor. And sure enough, wouldn't you know, they call an ambulance. He goes to the hospital. I go back to my trailer and everything, and he goes to the hospital, and I didn't hear any more until later on that night at like 11 o'clock news. I swear there's a freaking big hurricane. I don't know what the hurricane was. There's this hurricane going on in Florida. People are getting their homes blown away and everything. It's a big, huge news. And the lead story on the 11 o'clock news was Jim Carrey injured by a wrestler on the set of Man on the Moon. News at 11, film at 11. And that was like the huge, big story of all of Hollywood. And then the next day, I get word that I'm fired from the movie. And that I go home and Jim Carrey wants me replaced and all the scenes reshot with somebody else and so I'm just thinking, geez, what am I going to do now? Anyway, I go home and about a week goes by and I didn't hear from anybody except all this news that I'm off the movie and they're going to replace me and everything. And then about a week later, I get a call from Milos Forman and the director, and he says, Jerry, can you be in New York on this date? We're going to film the Letterman scenes with David Letterman. And I said, I thought I'm fired. I thought he wanted me out there. He's calmed down. Everything is okay. We got it all smoothed over. We love you, Jetty. You're terrific.
Of course I do.
so the funny thing was then of course, the scenes we were shooting next were the Letterman where I got to slap him. And man, oh man, did I paste that son of a bitch. I hit Jim Carrey so freaking hard, much harder than I hit Andy Kaufman. And he got up and he was holding the side of his head. He said, oh my God, you really punked me out on that one. And he said, Milos, I hope you got that on one take because I can't do that again.
So he knew he'd been a jackass, huh?
Oh yeah, he knew it. And he gave me this nice North Face jacket. He gave me a bunch of gifts and stuff like that. And you know what? I swear to God, a few weeks ago, I haven't heard from Jim Carrey in years. A few weeks ago, I get a call from his secretary and says, Jim has something he wants to give you. Want to get your mailing address. I think, what? And so I give him my mailing address. I give her my mailing address, and I said, what is it? She said, oh, I can't tell you. It's going to be a surprise.
Oh, God.
Right?
We don't like surprises.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, a couple of days later, I get this box, a not very big box in the mail, and I open it up. There's this letter, a handwritten note from Jim Carrey, and it was weird in the sense that apparently somebody gave Jim Carrey the costume that I wore, the wrestling costume that I wore in the movie Man on the Moon, and apparently he thought it was from me. I don't know. I never saw that. I wanted the costume. I never saw it after the making of the movie.
Right.
But in this letter it says, Dear Jerry, the gift of the costume that you wore in Man on the Moon is possibly one of the greatest gifts I've ever received. Working with you in that movie was both an odyssey and was a shining moment in something, I don't know, like really putting me over, right? And he said, I know that you have dabbled in music and cut your own albums. He said, I just wanted to give you something from my record album collection, and I hope you enjoy it. And he said, next time you're in L.A., he said, I have a suite at the Staples Center. Give me a call. I'd love to have you as my guest. And so anyway, that's the letter. And then in the box were about 8 record albums, pristine condition, mint condition record albums, all by wrestlers. All like there was the Hulk Hogan WWE album,
right.
Album by Sweet Daddy Siki, album by Antonio Rocco, all of these different wrestlers that over the years, I mean, some of them went back to the 60s and everything. All of these records that had been cut by wrestlers that somehow he had in his record collection, and he sent them all to me for some reason or other. But anyway, that was his gift that he sent.
So do you play them all the time?
No, I've never played any.